culture vulture, or like you.
That's so stupid.
Like, people will describe the collaborative efforts that I've put forth and the artists that I've picked up and lifted up, or shine a light on as me taking. You know, they'll put a negative spin on it and try and tell me, you know, that it's a self-serving thing or whatever. And I think I get really sensitive about that.
And you should.
At that moment, I was just like, well, you know what? Then don't even worry about it.
So it hurts Drake's feelings when people call him a culture vulture. In this interview with Bobbi Altoff, someone who people feel like came out of nowhere and kind of blew up by using black people's culture. He sat down with her and talked. All right, I'm just joking. Before I give my honest assessment of what Drake said, make sure you go join the Discord. It's linked in my bio, man. We talk about sports, we talk about music, we talk about all that. I'm getting everything set up this week, man. If there's ever a topic you want me to speak about and I have not spoken about it, you can add me on Discord and let me know there, because I'm not good at checking messages on here. I appreciate everybody who joined so far. All right, so is Drake a culture vulture, right? This is the big question, right? Is Drake a culture vulture? Now, I made videos speaking about why I feel like Drake isn't per se culture, but is he a culture vulture? Now, he's not lying in the sense that he has helped put people on the map, or gave people bigger mainstream looks. That's the way I'm going to put it, right? He said put a spotlight on people or lift people up. Right, some people may look at that lift people up thing as a little disingenuous, right? Because a lot of people feel like Migos would have been Migos whether Drake came or not, like things like that, right? But he did give them a mainstream look faster than they would have gotten it. You understand what I'm saying? So we can't fault him for that. When it comes to the culture vulture topic, it's like this. Like, remember when Drake did the Iceman episode 1, and I reacted to when that kid pulled up and called Drake a word, and Drake rolled the window down and said, then come over here, fam, or something like that. And he had a different accent. And I was like, what's Drake's real accent, right? Because sometimes Drake talks like a Valley girl. Like, he's sitting down with Bobbi Altoff, right? So he sounds like, his voice sounds a certain way. But then if he's with Lil Yachty or Young Thug or somebody, he sounds like he's from Atlanta, right? And then when he's with Party Next Door, he sounds like he's from Toronto. And then sometimes he sounds like he's speaking patois Jamaican, right? And it's like, I don't even know who the real you is, right? It's just like, whoever you are, you're like a chameleon. And it's actually good that you could do that and create these different types of sounds and different music. I'm not knocking you for that, but it's like you feeding off these different cultures. Like, you go to Houston and you're a Houstonian, you feel me? And it's just like, who are you for real? It's like you getting a little fan base from here, you getting a little fan base from there. Can we knock you for that? I don't know. Some people find you to be a culture vulture. You feel me? Like, Sauce Walker don't mess with the way you use Houston sound, but you ain't really, you feel me? Look out for people. People in Atlanta don't love you because you put a lot of money in their pockets. That's undeniable. You know, and then Kendrick's spin on that was the whole last verse and Not Like Us, man. It's just like, it's perception, gang. It's perception. You feel me? Like Bobbi Altoff, she blew up by using Funny Marco's comedic style and then interviewing with a bunch of people relevant in the black culture community. So people felt like she was a culture vulture. That's why, because she built her relevance upon our culture. But did she do anything for our culture? Did she speak about anything for our culture? Does she actually care about our culture? That's the thing. That's when you look at somebody as a culture vulture. And you feel me? Some people feel like Drake has done a lot for the culture. Some people feel like Drake has done nothing for the culture. And that's why we are where we are.
In order for Drake to be a culture vulture, in order for Drake to be a culture vulture to be true, right? In order for there to be some truth to that, there would have to be evidence of him not contributing significantly to the culture. You know how you go to court and they say the burden of proof is on the prosecution, right? Meaning the person or the entity that is sort of leveling the criticism, that's saying, hey, you did such and such. It is incumbent upon them to prove that you didn't do this or that, right? Well, the same is true here. Like, in other words, we wouldn't be able to say, man, that sounds like a bar that Drake would rap, right? Or, I don't know, like, that's a Drake type of sound, right? That's the type of a beat that Drake would rap over. We would not be able to use those phrases and they ring any truth whatsoever if Drake has not contributed significantly to the art form over these 16 years. Does that make sense to anybody? Like, there are literally two generations of rappers that Drake has significantly influenced. Like, think about that. There are tons of people, let's just say, that believe Jay-Z, Kanye West, Beyonce, right? I get it, different genre of music, whatever, but that believe that those three artists in their own right have a very legitimate argument that they're the GOAT. They're the best to ever do it. And Drake has written songs for all of them, and in Jay-Z's case, has, rapped multiple songs with him, where Drake was the heaviest contributor, right? Had the most verses, did the hook, wrote the hook, whatever, right? But in the case of Beyonce and Kanye, he's literally written songs, multiple songs for them, and written songs with them as well. I mean, so that alone is enough of a contribution, but that's just like, we won't mention when Drake's done one day, we won't even mention in his top 50, maybe even his top 100 best or most significant accomplishments musically, what he did with those three artists. And what he did with those three artists was amazing. Think about that. I don't know. It's stupid. Calling Drake a culture vulture has always been stupid. It will always be stupid. And it's maybe in the top 3 dumbest things that people that just don't like Drake anyway tend to say to make their case as to why them not liking Drake is legitimate. And it's nonsense.
Me personally, knowing what I know about Toronto, knowing what I know about the commercialism of hip hop nowadays, it's not something that I really hammer on, right? I'm not gonna do that. What I will say, a piece of advice for any other artists out there, I do think there is such a thin sometimes as, I guess, either if you want to call it maybe being too accessible and or being oversaturated. So you got to find the balance on that, right? If you're a person that maybe, you like to collaborate, but you're here, you're in Atlanta, you're in this place, you're in that place, especially in hip hop, which sometimes can be regional, don't expect people to always understand, right? Same way, if you're not too accessible, people may be like, oh, you're Lauryn Hill, you're hiding, no one sees you. So just find the balance, right? What I will say, another thing he moved on, talked about is, wanting to speak to someone interesting, like this convo that they're having, he finds her interesting, and saying that, he's glad that it, pissed people off and made journalists angry, that he's given an opportunity to someone like Bobbi, because he also felt like he played a part in this new era of, artists like Nicki being able to sit down with Casanat and artists being able to sit down with Black Boy Max. And I'm fine with that. My issue with that, and I'm going to show you some other examples, as a combo, cool. But when the musical references and some cultural references come in and the person can't speak to that, they're either not informed enough, aware enough, I don't think it helps the conversation. I don't think it helps you as an artist. But I do recognize that sometimes artists will do that, maybe because then that person not being as aware won't give them as much pushback. And I'll just throw some examples at you. I'm sure you guys have seen a clip about, fake ice and rose and Bobby either. And again, if she's playing dumb and this is all part of her character, cool. And she didn't kind of get the Rick Ross joke, right? Or the Rick Ross slide punch. That's that. Another one, when Drake was talking to Bobby about, the conspiracy that he had gotten a podcast taken down. They used the fact that she had played Tyga's music. And then Drake says, I don't know if that's what happened. I don't know. There's some sly things going on with the music industry. There's some sly stuff going on. And Bobby, again, maybe just her character doesn't pick it up. And to me, I go, oh yeah, nah, you on that regulation shit. You on that bot shit. Do I want to talk about that? Do I want to bring it up? Now, granted, that's probably not what you want to do, right? But it's stuff like that. There's another one where she says there's another, she brings up Future, right? But she's confusing, I guess, the Future she knows is like, yeah, with another Future, which is Drake's manager, Future the Prince, right? The Somali Canadian guy, right? So that's another one that's really interesting. Like, it's funny for jokes, it's interesting, but it's the fact is Shorty doesn't know. But however, I will give her credit for some stuff that she does know. Other than autotune, she also, I guess something must have happened with autotune where she doesn't really know how autotune works. Again, if you're playing dumb, I guess. But one of the things I will say is that she gets to a point where she talked about like something non-music related, Drake's abs. And I was like, hey man, I don't give a damn. I'm not here to monitor niggas' abs, right? But Drake was able to be like, oh yeah, I might have just, people are saying that I have fake abs and that they call me BBL Drizzy. So call them back to the beef, right? But, what probably happened is I just used too much, Photoshop on my picture or Facetune or whatever app. And then Bobby says, you sure you want to admit that? The way she got to that, I'll give her credit for that. It's again, she's not a journalist. It's just a sit down. But I guess part of her being interested in podcasts, I will give her credit for that. I'll say another one I'll give her credit for is, when she says, so are you scared? So at one point they were talking about LA a lot and Bobby's homegirls and stuff like that. And then she slid in there like, are you scared to go back to LA or to LA? And then Drake was like, why would I do that? And then she goes, well, why didn't you do an LA tour? And, he explains that his American tour just finished. Again, I don't know if Bobby's playing dumb, but that's something that someone music related, would know. Now, there's a point that, they're having a combo. He gives her advice, but I think this, again, is rap music related and, just in general. Now, he had talked to her when he was giving her advice about not letting the first or immediate reactions get to her or the newest comments. And he talked about how when he drops albums, he believes that people have, phone calls about taking stances and narratives on his project. Like, if you're going to say this, I'll say this. And what I find interesting about that, media, especially legacy media, right? I'm not saying that it's okay or it's good to do. They're gonna sit down and do production meetings. You know what I mean? Now, people are calling. Let's say Joe Budden is calling up Charlemagne. I know they don't get along right now, but just walk with me. Like, yo, you gonna say this? I'm gonna say that. Yeah, that is nefarious. And I wish he had said names on that one. I will be honest with you, right? So that's that. And now another thing I will say, when he talks about, people having narratives, or he talks about, sitting down with Bobby and, someone that he finds interesting versus, sitting down with a Zane Lowe or something like that. He said that, and have these curated, sort of questions or, people that he doesn't like, that he's not fond of him. I do find it interesting at the beginning of the interview, they talk a lot, or the sit down, they talk often about how, there were some rift there and they didn't get along. And if Drake was able to, find his way back to good graces with Shorty and be cool, I think there's more than enough people in media that, that are, more informed and well challenged that he can make good graces with too. But all in all, I think if you like Drake and you like Bobby, the sit down was entertaining. For the music stuff, that was all I thought, was interesting and that I could talk about. I don't think it's candid, but I don't think you're going to get that from a lot of artists. People are sitting with streamers, people are doing women's magazine interviews, people are getting interviewed by their own artists. That's just kind of the day and age we're in, and you're going to try to see what you can strip off the fat. You know what I'm saying? Like, just strip the fat off and then take the muscle. Now, I thought Drake's outro was funny because the entire thing was just like a proper sit down and, just sly jokes and sarcasm. And at the end, I guess bro had one too many drinks and started saying, I see y'all boys outside. And I'm like, dog, this is not urban radio. This is you with Bobbi Altoff. So let me know if y'all have any questions or anything else that I missed. But it was cool. There's nothing groundbreaking. Nothing groundbreaking. That's a kind of that's why I look at it.
Gang, I swear to God, this motherfucker was picking the words right out of my brain, bro. Them alt girls with the tattoos and the piercings, bro, I'm telling you, on a good day, they can do no wrong, bro. Like the ones who be wearing those black everything, the black tights, the black fucking leather gear with the little spikes on them and shit like that, plus those big ass black boots.